Good evening to everyone, and welcome as we get ready to bring you live coverage of the EO Leblanc Lecture for 2025, forming part of Dominica's independence celebrations. We do trust that you stay tuned to the genuine sound of Dominica Cairo FM as we continue to bring you broadcasts of various kinds. So following as part of Dominica's independence celebrations, we are getting ready for the arrival of Her Excellency, the President of Dominica, acting President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Joseph Matthew. Once again, good evening to everyone and welcome as we get ready to bring you live coverage of the EO Leblanc Lecture here at the University of the West Indies, located on Emsall Road at the University Global Campus, and the Division of Culture presenting the 12th annual EO Leblanc panel discussion. Mr. Michael Walter is the moderator, and the theme is traditional community livelihoods. The theme is very attractive and seems like it's going to be an interesting discussion as we get ready to hear from the speaker. Mrs. Miranda Stevenson is one of the speakers, as well as Mr. Derek Theophil. Other speakers are Micah Walter, and the biography of each of the speakers will be given, so I do not want to preempt the program as it were, but just to give you an idea of what's on the arrival of Her Excellency. The national anthem will follow the arrival of Her Excellency, the President of Dominica, acting when she takes her position. The national anthem will be sung by very popular Calypsonian Tasha Peltier. We will have the invocation by Monsignor Eustace Thomas of Our Lady of Fairhaven Cathedral. The welcome remarks will be done by Dr. Kimon Joseph, head of the UWI Open Campus, or UWI Global Campus to be exact.
Please stand for the arrival.
Now the arrival
Your
of
Excellency, Mrs. Josette Matthew, Acting President of the Commonwealth of Dominica. So sweet and fair, all must surely gaze in wonder at thy gifts so rich and rare. Rivers, valleys, hills, and mountains, all these gifts we do extol. Healthy land, so like all fountains, giving cheer that warms the soul. Dominica, God hath blessed thee with a clime benign and bright, pastures green and floors of beauty, filling all with pure delight, and a people strong and healthy, full of godly reverence fair. May we ever seek to praise thee for these gifts so rich Come ye forward, sons and daughters of this gem beyond compare. Strive for honor, sons and daughters, do the right, be firm, be fair. Toil with hearts and hands and voices, we must prosper, sound the chord in which everyone rejoices, all for each and each for all.
Before I do much in form of welcome or anything like that, I would like to call on Father Eustace Thomas, Monsignor Eustace Thomas, priest at Our Lady of Fairhaven Cathedral, to come and lead the opening prayer, and then I'll let you sit, and then I'll do all the other talking that we have to do. Father?
Share in these goodies of meeting all these great intellectuals in our country. Au nom du Père, du Fils et du Saint-Esprit, Amen. Dieu éternel tout-puissant, grâce à compétence et talent, docteur Kimon Joseph, et puis d'autres teachers, nous rassemblons ici pour réfléchir à son importance communauté de la vie traditionnelle. Nous. Ça, c'est 12e lecture en mémoire de l'honorable Edouard Oliva Leblanc, qui était ancien premier ministre Dominique. Comme ça, nous remercier Papa Bon Dieu pour poursuivre nous et puis belle assistance, mon spécial, qui fait nous trois pays en meilleure compréhension de présentation et développement héritage culturel nous qui riche pour le pays nous et tout le monde région Caraïbéa. Comme ça, Papa Bon Dieu, nous avons invité au temple souple pour voir l'Esprit Saint à ces mondes-là. Puis on ça partager l'éducation, pas seulement et puis monde, et puis nous, mais puis tous ces mondes-là qui à l'écoute par différents moyens de communication sociale. Là. Alors quand nous vivons avec la nous pouvons recevoir et développer une meilleure compréhension communauté de la vie traditionnelle. Bénis-nous et puis aidez-nous pour nous ça n'est plus intérêt pour développer nous-mêmes, famille nous et prochains nous. Pour nous ça établir plus progrès en pays nous. Nous commandons au gloire ça là par Jésus-Christ et maman la Vierge, ensemble avec l'Esprit Saint, nous seul bon Dieu pour les siècles des siècles. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. The kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Almighty and eternal God, thanks to the organizational skills of Dr. Kimon Joseph, head of this campus in Dominica, and the staff. We have been brought here this evening to reflect on the importance of traditional community livelihood. On this 12th lecture in memory of Honorable Edward Oliver Leblanc, the former Prime Minister of our country, we are grateful to you, Almighty Father, for providing us with the assistance of distinguished panelists who lead us to better comprehend the preservation and development of the rich cultural heritage of our country and the Caribbean region. Therefore, invite you, please, to send the power of your Spirit on these patriotic and erudite persons so that by sharing the knowledge with us here, as well as those listening through the various forms of social media, will return to our respective homes with a better understanding of a traditional community livelihood. Bless us and help us to be more interested in developing ourselves, our families, and our neighbors in order to bring progress to our country. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ and his humble Mother Mary, in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God forever and ever. Amen. Let's enjoy.
I would prefer if the front door was closed at this time and that people would use the other door. I hate to say that when we're already live, but I feel like I have to. That people would use that door from now on. Thank you. Your Excellency, Mrs. Josette Matthew, Acting President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Monsignor Eustace Thomas, Priest of Our Lady of Fairhaven Parish, Mr. Ulson Matthew, who I do not think I've seen quite yet, but I'm sure he's on his way. Very good. He's right there. Wonderful. Good evening, Mr. Ulson Matthew, Chief Cultural Officer, Division of Culture, and the staff of the Division of Culture. Mr. Micah Walter, who is the Coordinator of Private Sector Relations, Industry, Commerce, and Innovation in the Ministry of Labor, Public Service Reform, Social Partnership, Entrepreneurship, and Small Business Development. Our panelists, Mrs. Miranda Stevenson, Mr. Derek Theofield, and Mrs. Gwyneth Frederick. Audience members in the auditorium, and those joining us live via Kyrie FM and Imo News. I see Miss Rosalind Paul is there with us as well. Good evening to you, Miss Paul. And all the bell moon everywhere. I'm looking in the auditorium and we look so lovely. You all look wonderful this evening. Good evening, good evening. To our media representatives too, and everybody hearing the sound of my voice, good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Dr. Kimon Joseph, and I'm head at UWI Global Campus in Dominica, and it is my pleasure to serve as your chair for this evening's proceedings. Tasha Peltier has already blessed us with the national anthem, done so wonderfully, and Father Thomas has already done the invocation. But in addition to my role as chair this evening, I'm also charged with giving the welcome remarks on behalf of the University of the West Indies Global Campus. And so I will do so at this time. Now I forgot to say good evening to the most wonderful people, my staff. Hello. Hello. All right. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you this evening to the 12th annual E.O. Leblanc Memorial Lecture. The purpose of this lecture series is to focus on the themes of culture and heritage preservation. This series is named after E.O. Leblanc, who, throughout his life, had been adamant that our cultural heritage should be preserved and enjoyed. Over the last few years, we have been working with Mr. Ulson Matthew, who is now serving at the helm of the Cultural Division, and we agreed on a change from broad cultural topics to those that are more focused on the theme of History Week each year. This year, the topic is cultural livelihoods in Dominica, and we have decided to have a panel discussion once again. We will be focusing on 3 specific geographic areas in Dominica where people have been working together for many, many years in order to sustain themselves and their families. Delis, the Kalinago Territory, and Soufriere Scott's Head. Now, that is not to say that these are the only 3 places in Dominica where the cooperative principles and the each one help one mentality is followed. I grew up in the 1980s. And the more I look at it, I genuinely believe that my generation, without knowing it at the time, got the tail end of a time when Dominica was at its truest and purest spirit of kudme and resourcefulness. Now, I don't want to risk upsetting anybody from the 90s and beyond by thinking that they were any less or more than we were, but I have come to think that those of us who had a little less luxury than we have today were in many ways richer than we are today. And those of us who grew up closer to the soil, closer to the sea, and closer to the forests were a lot less tech savvy than the people who are growing up now. That is true. But our communities communicated more and were a lot closer than we are today, even if they have better technology. You see, I grew up in La Plaine in Dominica's southeast at a time when cultural livelihoods were the order of the day. I grew up in a time of spice summers, where villagers moved from Ma's so-and-so yard this week to Mr. So-and-so's yard next week to help each other to peel spice. And it was this spice, this cinnamon, that was sold to pay for school books and uniforms for children for the new school year. That for us was cultural livelihoods because while La Plaine people removed spice, there were stories, there were songs, and there was a little gossip. Well, there was a lot of gossip. And there was food, and there was laughter, and there was friendship. Of course, Spice Summer was also a temporary killjoy for us, the children. This is because for 2 weeks after the spice removing had finished in our yard, my siblings and I would be grounded. Not for punishment, but we had to watch the spice dry all over the yard and on the rooftops. And at any sight of rain, we had to bring them all down and then wait for the rain to pass, and then we had to put them all back out again. So for 2 weeks, we couldn't go to the river, and we couldn't go and hang out with our friends. We were on spice grounding. I also recall going to the bay oil still with my brother and my sister to drop off coffee and bread for cousin so-and-so. In La Plaine, everybody cousin, okay? That's just how it is. Because people would help each other to harvest the bay leaf branches and to haul them to the still, where the men would stay up all night to make bay oil to sell to the cooperative people. And in the bay oil still, too, there were stories and songs and a little gossip, a lot of gossip. And I remember the men would quickly hush when they would see me and my siblings coming to drop off the food. Without knowing it then, by taking coffee to this cousin and that cousin, my brother and I were participating in cultural livelihood experiences as well. No, that is my experience. But I'm sure that if we were to ask my fellow Southeasterners from Dalis about Toloma and Farin harvest and production, they would have their own experiences to tell us. And if I were to ask Jean-T. Savan and Jean-T. Soufrier about bay oil, they would have their own songs to sing. And if I ask Jean Penville about yam or Jean Charlotteville about fishing, they too would talk about the good old days and the good old times. Just like the way we dress, the foods we eat, our music, our language, and the way we build our houses and communities, the way we earn forms part of that uniquely woven tapestry that creates our cultural heritage. Of course, each community in Dominica has its intricacies in terms of what grows best there, in terms of what livestock is best suited, in terms of what wildlife delicacies roam their forests, woodlands, marshes, and waterways. But what makes these practices of economic survival truly cultural livelihoods are the ways that our tradition and the essence of who we are as a people come through when people meet together to work and to earn. The work is hard. There is no doubt about that. But Dominicans have never ever shied from hard work. Yet, what makes work endurable is a sense of camaraderie and a sense of purpose that we all share. The idea of cultural livelihoods is that little people and grown-ups too Know and understand that the biblical words should still ring true. By the sweat of your brow, you shall eat bread. This evening, we will hear from 3 panelists. Mrs. Miranda Stevenson will speak on the topic, Toloma, Roots of Sustainability and Community Resilience. Mr. Derek Theophile will speak on the topic, Anuive Bodlamea, the Fishing Culture of Soufriere and Scotshead. And finally, Mrs. Gwyneth Frederick will speak on the topic, Kalinago Crafts, Weaving Traditional Practice and Modern Business Innovations. Our panel tonight will be moderated by Mr. Michael Walter, Coordinator of the Private Sector Relations, Industry and Commerce and Innovation in the Ministry of Labor, Public Service Reform, Social Partnerships, Entrepreneurship, and Small Business Development. We at the UWI Global Campus wish to thank the Cultural Division, who has been working with us for the past 12 years to ensure that this series is executed as part of the National Independence Events Calendar. Ulson, we rejoice. Where's Ulson? Sit right there. We rejoice with you on your appointment as Chief Cultural Officer. UWI remains committed to this relationship that we have established with you, Giselle, Carlton, Dorel, Tasha, and the rest of the team at Cultural Division. I have no doubt that we'll continue to work well together long into the future. Mrs. Amanda Theodore Langley, our Guild of Students chapter president, is scheduled to give the vote of thanks later. But I do want to give some special highlights since I have the floor. Madam Acting President, Your Excellency, Mrs. Josette Matthew, it is a delight to have you with us this evening. The patronage of the President of the Commonwealth of Dominica has always been welcomed at our UWI events, and we are very grateful for your support. In addition, I'm grateful to my own team for their continued support in this and other events and activities. I'm also grateful for the support of the executive members of Dominica's chapters of the Guild of Students and the Alumni Association, who are on board with this project. We are also pleased with the collaborative support that we get from Kyrie FM and from Imo News, who are carrying this event live. Again, our media partners have proven to be friends to UWI. The support has been unwavering, and I am grateful. Steve and Emmeline, we appreciate you and all your teams do for us. On behalf of the University of the West Indies, in particular, the staff and students of Dominica site, I welcome everyone here to this event, and I anticipate wonderful presentations and a lovely discussion afterwards. We invite all of you here at the Alwyn Bully Auditorium to join us for a cozy reception after the lecture in the Francis Sevre main classroom. Thank you very much. Oh, you can clap for me now, eh? Think I'm not going to tell you to clap for me. I like clapping. All right. I now invite Mr. Ulson Matthew, who is the Chief Cultural Officer, no acting behind that this time, of the Division of Culture, to give collaborative remarks on behalf of his division. Mr. Matthew.
Thank you very much, Kimon. Dr. Kimon Joseph. Your Excellency, Mrs. Josette Matthew, Acting President of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Monsignor Eustace Thomas, Priest Our Lady of Fairhaven Parish. Dr. Kimon Joseph, Head, UWI Global Campus, and staff of the UWI Global Campus. Mr. Michael Walter, Coordinator, Private Sector Relations, Industry, Commerce, and Innovation in the Ministry of Labor, Public Service Reform, Social Partnership, Entrepreneurship, and Small Business Development. Our panelists, Ms. Miranda Stevenson, Mr. Derek Theophile, and Mrs. Gwyneth Frederick. Audience, members in the auditorium, and those joining us live via Kyrie FM and Imo News, media representatives, good evening to all. Once again, we are at the UWI Global Campus Auditorium, the Alwyn Bully Auditorium, for the EU Leblanc Memorial Lecture, with this year's focus being traditional community livelihoods. The intention is to highlight the cultural impact of various livelihoods and in the process dispel a few notions and stereotypes. So we will explore ways that we can establish the perfect balance or the juggling act among education, skill, passion, because you need a lot of passion for those community traditions, business, knowledge, management, and so on, as it relates to some traditions that have essentially shaped who we are as a people. We have come a long way. Thankfully, we are in a time where it is no longer doctor, lawyer, office worker, and then failure. And you know that was the mindset a long time ago. We no longer look down on livelihoods that have built our communities and societies. There was a mindset among our parents, and I say our generally, that we working hard to send you to school so you don't have to work the soil. Or whatever it is that the parents did, whatever that proverbial soil was. And what was overlooked at the time is the fact that the soil, the same soil, was producing university graduates. Now we are learning different dimensions to the traditions that came before us. Times have changed, and we are evolving, and the future looks promising. So I'm curious to see how our distinguished panelists approach this discussion. History Week and this very lecture is a part of what has been thus far a remarkably independent season. We have witnessed, the National Days of Prayer and Thanksgiving, because we put the Creator first in everything. I don't hear anybody agree with me. The much talked about opening parade, 4 district festivals, and yesterday you witnessed Flag Day as we attempted to instill that patriotism and nationalism in our youth through a memorable experience for them, but still in line with what is taught in the classroom. Not many activities can claim that feat as far as national emblems go. And I know we still have a long way to go as it relates to etiquette of the anthem and the flag and so on, but we'll get there. And there's a lot more to come. I was telling my staff at our meeting today, I feel like we've done so much for the season, but in reality, we're just about halfway there. So we have a lot more to go. There will be Hard Creole Fridays, Heritage Day in Newton on the 19th, the Madame Wop Duet Pageant on the 22nd, the Miss Wop Duet Pageant on the 29th, the National Dress Parade on Journée Creole, that's the 31st, the National Cultural Gala on the 2nd of November, amidst many other activities. So continue to support and play your part in preserving, promoting, and developing our culture as we celebrate 47 years of progress and purpose. And I would like to end by thanking Dr. Kimon Joseph and the UWI Global Campus staff, team, for your unwavering support in this annual activity and many others. And of course, my team at the division, who you heard Kimon mention a while ago by name. I hope those of you in attendance and those of you viewing and listening learn from, are inspired by, and just enjoy tonight's offering. Thank you.
And now it's time for me as chair to pass over so that our panel discussion can begin. So I invite Mr. Lester John, who is the deputy chair of the UWI Global Campus Guild of Students Dominica chapter, to introduce our moderator, Mr. Michael Walter, and then we'll proceed to begin this evening's panel discussion. Mr. John.
A very pleasant good evening to all. Let me say it is indeed a pleasure to be introducing Mr. Walter. Mr. Micah Jacob Walter is the coordinator, private sector relations, industry, commerce, and innovations in the Ministry of Labor, Public Service Reform, Social Partnership, Entrepreneurship, and Small Business Development. Micah is currently finalizing his Bachelor of Science degree in Management Studies at the UWI Global Campus. He completed his Associate of Science degree in Sociology at the Dominica State College in 2006. Micah has completed several professional training programs within UWI's continuing and professional education program. He holds certificates of achievement in grant proposal writing, project management, procurement, and teaching adults in the 21st century. Throughout his career, Micah has worked as a business development officer in the Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Tourism, and the National Development Foundation of Dominica. Micah serves in several community groups and organizations. These include his service as Deputy Chair of the Central Cooperative Credit Union, Deputy Chair of the Peerbush Disaster Committee, Chair of the God's Family House of Worship Men's Ministry, and Chair of the Board of Directors of Center Where Adolescents Learn to Love and Serve, Halls. Micah, his wife Shanice, and their children live in the beautiful village of Peerbush.
Good evening. Your Excellency, Mrs. Josette Matthew, Acting President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Monsignor Eustace Thomas, Priest, Our Lady of Fairhaven Parish, Dr. Kimon Joseph, Head, UWI Global Campus and staff of the UWI Global Campus, Mr. Ilson Matthew, Chief Cultural Officer, Division of Culture, and the staff of the Division of Culture. Our panelists, Mrs. Miranda Stevenson, Mr. Derek Theofield, and Mrs. Gwyneth Frederick. Audience members in the auditorium and those joining us via Kyrie FM and MO News. Media representatives, good evening to all. I extend warm greetings to all gathered here for this year's E.O. Leblanc Memorial Lecture. I'm humbled to have been given the opportunity to serve as moderator. This annual event celebrates the life and legacy of Edward Oliver Leblanc, Dominica's first premier, a leader whose deep appreciation for people, our land, and our culture continues to inspire generations. As we explore the theme, traditional community livelihoods, it's important to recognize that these traditions are not just remnants of our past, but rather they continue to evolve and inspire new forms of enterprise today. Across Dominica, we see remarkable examples of how traditional skills and practices are being reimagined into viable modern-day businesses. One such example is that of the cassava man, who has transformed cassava processing and value addition, once a communal village activity, now a brand that connects heritage with local food innovation. Similarly, in our fishing communities, traditional knowledge of the sea continues to sustain families. Our craft makers and essential oil producers, they are modern-day entrepreneurs rooted in ancestral wisdom. These stories remind us that traditional livelihoods are not static. They form the very foundation of Dominica's creative economy, offering pathways for innovation, sustainable income, and cultural continuity, all rooted in the belief of E.O. Leblanc. This evening's discussion gives us a chance to reflect on how these traditional livelihoods, from toloma to fishing to craft, can continue to inspire a modern, sustainable Dominica. Our panelists will help us explore just that. As we transition into our presentations, Each speaker will have a maximum of 20 minutes for their presentation. I will indicate when 5 minutes and 1 minute remains using time cards. Following the presentations, we'll move into a guided question and answer discussion with the audience before concluding the panel segment. We are privileged to have 3 outstanding individuals whose work embodies the essence of the theme. Mrs. Miranda Stevenson. She is the Chief Extension Officer acting in the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy. She is currently pursuing a master's in business administration from Formato Educativo in Spain. In addition, she graduated from the UWI Global Campus in 2007 with her bachelor's in agribusiness, and management. She holds several other certificates from other higher education institutions. Throughout her career at the Ministry of Agriculture, Miranda has worked as an extension officer, agriculture officer, project officer, and technical officer. She has also worked with the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, CADI, particularly with research and stakeholder outreach for roots and tuber crops. Miranda is originally from Crayfish River in the Kalinago territory, but she and her husband Kian have made their home in Cassibruce. Her topic tonight is Toloma, Roots of Sustainability and Community Resilience. Let's welcome Mrs. Stevenson to the table. Mr. Derek Theophil. He is the Chief Fisheries Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy. He graduated from UWI Cave Hill with his Masters of Science in Natural Resource and Environment Management in 2023. In addition, he completed his postgraduate certificate in Marine and Inland Water Resources Assessment and Monitoring with the United Nations University Fisheries Training Program in 2016. Derek also holds several certificates and diplomas in ocean governance, fisheries management, sustainable land management, and other areas. Derek is a member of Junior Chambers International in Dominica. He is originally from Newtown, but has made his home in Scott's Head. His topic is Anuwive Bolamela, the fishing culture of Soufriere and Scott's Head. Let's welcome Mr. Theophil. And last but not least, Mrs. Gwyneth Frederick. She's the manager of the Kalinago Barana Ote. She holds a bachelor's in management studies from UWI Cave Hill and an associate's in hospitality and tourism management from the Trinidad and Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute. Before her current role at the Kalinago Barana Ote, Gwyneth worked as a marketing officer, specifically for the European market, for the then National Development Corporation. She was also the community liaison officer for the Caribbean Development Bank's community capacity building project in the Kalinago territory, and a compliance officer of the Dominica Social security. She is originally from Bataka, but she and her husband, Kozia, have raised their family in Salibia, Kalinago territory. Gwenev's topic is Kalinago crafts, weaving traditional practice and modern business innovation. Let us welcome Mrs. Frederick to the table. And at this point in time, we move straight ahead into our presentations with Mrs. Miranda Stevenson, who will be speaking on the topic Toloma, Roots of Sustainability and Community Resilience.
Good night, everybody. Special good night to Her Excellency and Chief Cultural Officer, Dr. Joseph from the UWI Open Campus, all our beautiful people in all their glitters and colors, the beautiful season for food and celebration, culture and tradition. Toloma, well, I'm not from Delhi to start with, and you're going to wonder why am I here to talk about Toloma culture and community when I'm not from the community. But I have been working with traditional processing and traditional crop production for the last 14 years. I have been the PSIP coordinator for the Ministry of Agriculture as public investments projects, specifically targeting all of the traditional processing. So I know a little bit of cassava, some toloma, some bay oil, and all our value-added products. We don't have too many, so I'm part of a little bit of everything. So Toloma, roots of sustainability and community resilience. Well, roots, as it speaks, Toloma is a root, and sometimes it's very confusing. Some say Toloma arrowroot, and you don't know what's the difference. But they are both starches from roots, but they are just of different plants. So in St. Vincent, they actually do arrowroot. It's a different product from what we have in Dominica, which is a rhizome from a plant that is called, a flower plant actually, and it's called a canna. So if you're looking for Toloma on the internet, you only see it related to Dominica, Australia, and some of the indigenous people in Latin America. But if you look for canna starch or canna powder, then you will know all of the benefits and all of the areas that are producing Toloma. So Toloma is just our name we give to the product, but internationally and scientifically, it's of the canna plant. Okay? So Delhi's, it's a community in the southeast, and basically everybody know about Toloma. And Toloma has been their thing for over, maybe older than I am, because you hear people who have gone to school before me and all they say is my Toloma is what sent me to school. So you know it's something that the community have been actively involved, passing on the tradition of Toloma making from one generation to the next. Like Dr. Joseph said, those activities are communal activities, almost in a Kudme style, because you cannot do it alone. There are so many related activities that goes into the process and the production of that commodity that no one person can do it alone. You have to harvest. Harvesting altogether needs more than one person. You'd have to either engage your family, your husbands, whoever, or if not, you have to hire people because it's a lot to do at one point. Then you have to wash. Then you have to clean. Then you have to grate. So, and then it goes on and on until you eventually see it now in some nice little Ziploc packages on the supermarket shelf. But it's a long process before it gets there, and every process have multiple people involved. So in those times and setting, there's a transfer of history, there's a transfer of cultural practices, there's a transfer of what used to happen then and what's happening now. And then with time, you actually see the transition of those production from humble and rudimentary setting now into a safer, food-safe environment where the consumers can feel more confident that they're eating something clean, produced safely, and healthy. So, Toloma is a starch made from the rhizome of the canna plant. It's basically used as a porridge, a thickener, or you can use it to make dumplings as well. Or it can be used anywhere or with any menu that cornstarch, potato starch, or any other starches, cassava starch. It can be used as a substitute in those dishes or in those utilities, whether it's for, before, our uniform officers would use their clothes and it would be stiff, although our Creole clothes would have been stiff, but we've transitioned a little. So those starches can be used as well, not just in food, but also in pharmaceutical and other utilities that used to be part of our culture. And the southeast region of Delis and Boitica, they are the leading producers of toloma on the island, producing over 90% of the toloma exported from Dominica for over 40 years. Toloma and Delis are complementary, like macaroni and cheese, or whatever, black and white, however you put it. Once you say Toloma, Delis, it's just an automatic thought. So it's not like Kalinago has cassava, and now I see cassava man trying to draw the little attention. But once you think of cassava and craft, you just think Kalinago. Once you think of fish, you think of souffle, conch shells. So it's just like that. Delis and Toloma, they go hand in hand. They're complementary to each other. And while Dominica was into other root crops and bananas and so on, the people of Delis, Toloma was their main activity. I mean, they did other, they're still doing, they did other crops and they participated in the main export production that was happening at the time. But Toloma has been there since it was selling from $1 all the way to now that it's selling at $11 a pound. So it's like it grows with them. And at the end of the conversation, you will see a small video of one of the prominent ladies of Toloma speaking of how Toloma, she and Toloma walk the journey of life together to this day. Yes. So both men and women are equally engaged. So it's, although once you talk about Toloma, you hear of the Delis women in action, you think of it's a woman thing. But most processing, you'll find a lot of women engaged in it, but the men are there. They're still there. They're just a little more silent. Yes. So they're equally engaged in the production, processing, and marketing of the crops. So they are not left behind. It's an equal gender participation. So it has cultural attachment to the community, and the processing would include, like I said, cleaning, harvesting, washing of the rhizome, grating it into the mash, and adding water, stirring, extracting the starch from the mash by wringing it within a cloth. It's a long, tedious process. And a lot from the ministry's point of view and all the other collaborators and partners, we have been trying to identify means and ways to kind of make the process a little more efficient. But because machinery is limited and all of that, it's taking a longer process to get it there. But I guess with innovation and a lot more brains, we will eventually get to that level. And then you have to allow the starch to settle, then you have to agitate again, and then you have to wash again and rinse again, and you have to scoop off the brownish grayish part, and some people would throw it away, others would utilize it in other means, until you get a clean, white, very, very clean powder. But I would just like to mention here, though, that the toloma itself, once you start peeling it, it oxidizes very quickly, so it's going to change from a creamish color, whitish color, to a gray-brown color very, very fast. So if you don't get it going quickly, you're going to have to do a lot more washing. Yeah, it's cassava as well. You have to soak it for a long time so that it don't oxidize quickly. So let's move on. Toloman community again. Toloma is exported to regional and international markets, and you will, in a slide lower down, you'll see where our main markets are and which are our bigger importers of, exporters of Toloma. And no, not yet, not quite yet. And Toloma now, every farmer is their own processor. Just like in the Kalinago territory, we have facilities where people buy from farmers to make the cassava mash. In Good Hope, Sansove, and those other areas, every farmer is their own processor. So they process in one facility, but they take turns in using that facility. And similarly, like Toloma, every farmer is their own processor. They would hire their own groups. They would engage their own family to go through that processing. Some would do grating and grinding in communal facilities. Others would do it at their own independent facilities. So it's every processor is a farmer. So when you listen processors and farmer, there's no difference between any of them. Yeah. Innovation. Like everything, people always try to make things easier for themselves. So some of the farmers have gone on and they have developed innovation in washing. There's one particular farmer, Mr. I think Eugene is his name. He used to use a cement mixer to wash because the amount he was doing was so much. The volumes was too big to just do it manually, so he had to use a cement mixer at one point. He still use it. He used to use it. He got rid of it, then he's considering something else. So innovations, as they go along, the farmers become innovative in trying to find means and ways of how they can make efficiency as well as mass produce, because when the market is good, you want to capture that market and make as much money. The grating, well, they've moved from the big galvanized graters to now mechanized graters, but it's a messy process because of the fibers and the moisture content. When you're grating it, there's a lot of splashing. So normally when you go to the facilities, you will see it kind of looking a little, like splashes, but it's all part of the process. And in drying, I think that's where the area they have made the most innovation. A lot of the farmers and a lot of the processors have gone and built drying facilities. Some of them look like little houses, and they have stacks of shelf where they put the toloma to dry, because as you become more exposed, you learn about food safety. Drying it in the sun unprotected, you have all kind of dust, lizards, insects, and contaminants. So to reduce that level of contaminants and to build consumer confidence, they've gone on and built constructed little huts where they can dry. Others still dry outside, but they would cover with netting. And they realize that they need to upgrade what they lay the toloma on. So now they have galvanized waiters, like stainless steel waiters, some of them. And others have mechanized it in a way where they have rollers, so when the rain come in, they just pull the tarpaulin over, so they don't have to they don't have to pick up and go out like Dr. Joseph did in her young days. So he's just rolling the tarpaulin over and then rolling it back, so the toloma can get sun, so it can dry as fast as possible. Then in packaging, well, they move from tying it in transparent plastic 1 pound bag. Now most of them have Ziploc packaging with proper labels, because they now go to fancy hotels, restaurants, and export, and supermarket, yes, as well. So now the supermarkets are demanding that they have codes, that they have label, expiry dates. So just like how your other foods would come in from other producers and more sophisticated manufacturers, the same thing is happening with toloma and most of our traditional processing at the moment. Benefits and uses of toloma: food for babies, and it's gluten-free. Once you have a baby, you're hearing about toloma. Food for persons with digestion problems, sick person. A lot of persons nowadays have, especially the cancer patients, when they cannot digest much, their family tend to resort to toloma, because it really doesn't have too much of a flavor unless you add an additive to it. So it's not something like, it's not acidic, no, it's not going to disrupt your digestive system. And food for the elderly when we become seniors, and some foods don't have taste anymore. So the elderly tend to ask for toloma a lot. It could be used in dishes that consist of potato starch, like I indicated, can be used for. And of course, our cocoa tea, it's the season for cocoa tea and tradition. We're thicken with toloma because we don't want to use wheat or flour in our teas, and we want to make it sound more healthy and traditional. So we resort to toloma. I know Emo like her toloma thicken cocoa tea. and well, and of course, it's not just for tradition and culture. If they were not making money from it, they would not be highly invested in producing the crop. So it's an export commodity generating foreign earnings and contributing to Dominica's GDP. So it's an export crop that brings value back, bring money back into our economy for circulation. And those are the regional markets for Toloma: Antigua and Barbuda, Anguilla, Guadeloupe, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Martinique, Montserrat, St. Martin, British Virgin Islands, United States Virgin Islands. With Martinique taking in at least 80% of our exports. Guadeloupe coming in with maybe another 10%, and the rest of the last 10% of our export of Toloma is absorbed by those other countries. So Martinique alone, in only 1 year, will take over $200,000 worth of Toloma from Dominica. Well, it's a little small, but for those who with glasses. I was trying to just show the trend, of what is the value that Toloma contributes as a commodity, as a traditional processing of value-added product, what it contributes to our GDP and how it contributes to the livelihoods of the people. So in basically it would be the value, the export value, and that would be and the net of what is exported. So in 2014, 9,990 kilograms was exported, contributing to 232,369. The figures sort of reduced as we came to Maria. Oh, don't worry. Sort of reduced as we came to Maria. And during the COVID, there was a significant glut, and the farmers were worried. They were speaking of exiting the processing. But luckily for us, an importer from Martinique came in and just absorbed everything that was within the community. It was a little struggle, and it lasted for a little while. It was a little depressing, but we're back on track and start producing again. You can move on. Problems and constraints within the whole movement and upgrading of the Toloma processing within that community, machinery and equipment, and innovators to add value addition to the Toloma itself, because we just, besides exporting it as a powder, there's nothing much that we do in Dominica with that specific product. So if innovators and young people can come along and get on board and think of ways, because we have to create our own market as well. We cannot just only rely on Martinique people to consume. And it's because it's a healthy product that they're buying it in such a large number. We have to find ways that would make it attractive for our population to consume as well. One, Toloma partners and collaborators. So our partners that work with us over the years and the people of Dalis over the years, ICA in terms of machinery design, farm tools, packaging material, group development training, business development training, the NCW with small grant, women empowerment, group formation, and that's under that the NCW that the Toloma Women in Action form, 73 members strong, maybe about 5 men, but it's a women's group. So, UNDP, after Maria, they bought desks and computers, table, oven, scale, and utensils, hoping that the facility can be used not just for processing, but also for research and development and training of people to use Toloma in different formulas, different recipes, and so on. FAO, training in food safety, and recommendations for better product and processing. And of course, the Ministry of Agriculture, Blue and Green Economy, facilitating all of those partners, as well as rehabilitating one of the major facilities within that community, post-Hurricane Maria. This is what the Toloma plant looked like. If you never saw it, so that's what the plant looked like. That's what the rice looked like. Harvest from the field. Our food heroes, besides Barry, but of course UWI is now part of the whole process. So Barry is from UWI, but yes, these are our food heroes. Shirley, of the management of the Toloma Women in Action and a big part of daily Toloma production. That's Hendrix, and behind him there you will see the Toloma and the machine that they use to break the Toloma. And yes, I hope I still have 1 minute.
I am Shirley George from and I've been around 40 years since I was a young child going to school. When I would go and carry water at Sus, where we used to carry water and make Toloma. I have to go to school in the morning, but at the same time when I go and I meet the grown-ups in the Toloma, I would fall in it. I would make a run a bucket with them and run up and then go to school. And that has been a good thing for me, especially with my children when they were going to school. I would be there and making it, selling it. I would not lose it for nothing. I love it. Because when Maria, I had 7 bags at my home. And my house, Maria mashed up my house, and they were standing up there like soldiers. And then I had to return and melt all again because they got wet, and fix it up nicely and sell it. And from that, I've been working in it and I love it. Because it's a good thing, a good form of income. Yeah, especially now. Yeah. You clean your land, then you dig it, and then you plant it. Now it all depends. If you take good care of it, you can have it like 8 to 9 months. When it is ready, you harvest, and then you bring it to the mill. Some people plant it close, but not me. Like to me, the further you plant it, the better you get more. And you give it a little soil, or even once you harvest already, the bush, the children, the rotten ones, you put that around the stem, and you have Toloma. To me now it is easier, because before you would have to use your foot and the old-time mill and use your hand. But right now it is easier, we have that machine. That is the Toloma. You harvest it from the field. When you harvest it, if you use your cutlass, you just try back and send that down. Because if you have to stay and do that could take it too much time. You harvest it and just cut that and put down. Because when people plant it after, when you cut it, that is not a plant. That you have to cut that, and you'll get other plants around it. You cut that, you put that on this side. Now when you come, you have to clean it. You have to clean it. When you clean it, if you're at your home, you clean it, you wash it. Because no dirty thing to go. You wash it, and you see, right. When you wash it, you bring that there. That is to grind. So he put it, you pour in a bucket, and then he start the machine. And then you pour. And you pour it there, and it will come down there fine in that box there. In that blue box, you put it under that, and then you pour until it's full of the measurement for a box. Then you put a plastic down there. When you Toloma is there, you're ready to strain it now. These are the 2 barrels. You open your cloth on. If you open your cloth on it, you put a rubber to fasten it. And then you put another cloth on it. And then you take the Toloma from there, and then you wash it. You wash, and let all the starch go down. When you squeeze it, you put it on back and do the same thing, you rinse it. So any little starch that did not go down in that barrel will go in there. When you finish, you strain it, you squeeze it, and you throw the carcass there. Now, when you are done with it, you have to let it rest, let everything settle. When you go, you throw the water, and you give it some clean water, and you stir it. When you stir it, everything mix, you leave it. When it's done, you throw the water, the whole lot of, I should say, the carcass on it, you take it off and put in something. You cannot throw it because there is some starch in it. No, and the main thing is in the barrel. So then you start giving it water and do the process over and over. Because when you wash it, it will clean faster. And it all depends. Yeah, you uproot the Toloma. Certain places you uproot the Toloma, you're giving it 9 waters and it will not get white for you. But sometimes I give my own 6 waters, 7 waters, and white as snow. And then when that is done, you put a cloth on it. Not any cloth, to absorb the water When they absorb it, you take a spoon or something and you take it out and you put in, distribute in trays. And some people, as I say, some people have their little houses. Some people put it outside in the sun. But I have my own above in the garage because when I actually heat dried. Free nice sun, put it down in bag. Some people want it in the 100-pound bag. Some people have to put it in 50-pound bag. But with me, put it in 50-pound because of the weight. Business is better with the Toloma now. Right now, I don't have any challenges selling my Toloma like before. You see, as it's ready to grind, somebody pay for it already. I have difficulties in getting help to harvest my Toloma. You're asking somebody to help you, so then they tell you yes and they doesn't come. Although you're paying them. I for sure cook food already for people and when come. No. I am part of the Toloma Women in Action from Delis. Yeah, we have around 50 members. The kind of support I would want is credit and tools. Why credit? Remember, you have to make the Toloma to sell it to get the money to pay. Okay? So before that now you haven't got the money, you have to take a little credit to pay them to harvest the Toloma, and then sometimes you even have to pay. I used to pay to carry it because from the field to the road to carry it. Now with the tools, you need the tools. You need the hook, you need the fork. You see? And then, because I'm using all those things, the hope for my future of doing Toloma in my community, the market, steady market. Steady market. And they could come and pay you on the field. If they would come and pay me on the field and tell me make that point for them, I would take the money and make it for them. You see, I don't.
Mr. Derek Theofield, who will be presenting on the topic Anu Wive Bod Lamera, the fishing culture of Soufriere and Scotshead. Please note that questions will be taken at the end of all the presentations. Let's make him welcome.
Good evening, good night, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. The acting president, nice to meet you. Kimon, of course. Wilson, yes. Nice to meet all of you. Of course, Michael. I am here to speak with you a bit about the fishing heritage of Soufriere and Scotshead. I am not a Soufriere Scotshead man. I was up in Roseau, so the Creole is a bit rough. Just this afternoon, I was biting my tongue talking to a friend of mine from Guadeloupe, and he was like, Theophile, and talking his French, and I was struggling, I mean, I could understand some of the things. I had to ask him to repeat a few times, but I'm a product of the time, I think we had some challenges learning the Creole from my geographic location. But I'm not here to talk about that so much. I'm here to talk about Soufriere and Scotshead a bit. And I will get into that because I think I have a few slides to run through. Soufriere and Scotshead, of course, are very interesting communities. These are two low-lying coastal villages in the south, in the parish of St. Mark, and they're possibly the two southernmost communities in Dominica, having a strong connection with the French neighbors. Of course, Martinique is the closest neighbor there, and the village of Grand Riviere in Martinique is only about 42 kilometers away by sea. Notice there that they also have a French Creole going on, the same Creole I just spoke about. While they are not the only communities that speak Creole regularly, starting from a very young age, I might add, they spoke it with a certain uniqueness that isn't found elsewhere in Dominica, I must say. I think the Creole changes based on where you go. But the link to the French islands is more than just a common tongue. A lot of people from these communities are family or very close friends over there. I myself have family over there. I'm sure many of you do as well. Right? And while that also isn't a unique phenomenon, it somehow seems to play out a bit differently in Scotshead. So this community seems to have a certain je ne sais quoi going on, I believe. But I am no sociologist, I'm no historian. I cannot tell you much about why these communities are so different outside of some perhaps very biased anecdotes, and that is Very reliant on my feelings. I mean, my family is from there and so on. But I am a resource manager, and with a background in tropical coastal resources and marine fisheries. So instead, I will talk with you a bit about tropical coastal resources and marine fisheries in Soufriere and Scott said, and perhaps tie that back in to give you a better idea as to how that fits into the broader understanding of fishing culture and heritage and why that is something important. Let's see if I can. All right, great, it works. Yes, so as you know, Dominica is a small island nation, and if the map was a bit bigger, you could see some of the community names on there. But as you know, most Dominicans live on or near the coast. Right? This is due to the topography of the island that we enjoy here. We have a very mountainous profile. Most communities are more easily settled on or near the coast because it's a bit more accommodating for habitation, right, for building your houses and such and whatnot. This resulting in communities having strong cultural, economic, and social connections with the coast, its waters, and of course the living resources in there. Right? So this is a little picture profile that was taken, I can't recall where or when, but it has some letters on it, and it just shows Roseau is all the way up there. So this, I think this was taken up at the Scottshead Point. Yeah, so A and B, Jungle Bay up there. And then we have C, Soufriere, right there in the middle. And of course, you have Gallio on the mountain up there. Now, I'll be focusing on Soufriere and Scottshead in this talk and largely excluding Gallio. That is primarily because Gallio is not considered a fishing community or a fish landing site. It would be pretty difficult to land fish up there. It's a mountain. However, I must mention that Gallio does have its own history of fishing, which may warrant further exploration at another date and time. I'll not do that now. Maybe in collaboration with another partner who has some knowledge as the area is well suited to fishing in the Soufriere Bay, which is the bay that we're watching there, and tourism activities, both in the bay and around the area on the terrestrial side. Now, let's look at these communities. Taking a closer look at the community, we see that Soufriere extends pretty far inland. Yeah, Soufriere extends pretty far inland. Even before you get to Soufriere village, of course, you have Jungle Bay. If you can understand this map, this is the road coming down Victoria Street, coming down from the town, and you have Jungle Bay up here. All right? Anyway, that's fine. We'll work with it. All right? And that's up at Mona Akuma up there. If you work your way inland, if you start out Soufriere Sulphur Springs National Park, you have Rodney's there, and then you have the village Alum Stream, and of course we'll just zoom in a bit. We have, of course, the Catholic Church right next to the Bubble Beach. We all know those places. You go there to soak and so forth. Some people say it's regenerative and so forth. Of course, you have the Alum Stream, and then you have the Soufriere Outdoor Center. If you move in where we southwards, then the SSM Lama building. We'll talk a bit about that later. And of course, you have Nature Island Dive, Simon and them. They have their dive shop there, also some of our very good partners. Of course, across the road from that, we have our recently put in place Coral Rescue Center. I'll talk about that as well a bit more. And then going down further south, we have the Seaside Bar, and then we have the general lighting site where the fishermen have their boats on the beach, or some of them tie out in the water. All right, so that's pretty much the profile. I like to give a little overlay of the land so you can know what's there. The area is not just a fishing community, although fishing plays a major role, but we'll see the changes that has happened. Leaving Soufriere, we're going down to Scottshead now. You might start off by meeting Sherwin. I mean, that's maybe one of the first places most people think about when they think about Scottshead. You go to restaurant, you know, ambience and whatnot by the Stony Beach. But then you have other nice restaurants as well. You have Rogers, you have Time on Time, you know, and so on. Of course, you have all of the seaside bars that are there, and they continuously blasting music, especially on the weekend. The Kadas, the Creole, you know, the Zouk, the Compa, right? And especially on a Sunday, you get that really rock in the community, and then you have to compete. They competing with each other for who making the most noise. And that's something you don't really find elsewhere like that. You know, the bars like right next to each other, and the walls not thick, and then they have the loudest music blasting, and it's just a sight to see, right? All right, continuing down, we have the St. Mark's Fisheries and Tourism Cooperative. So they are a cooperative for the entire community, the entire parish of St. Mark's, which is where we are talking about right now. Of course, you have the Isthmus, which joins the community, as Scott said, to the Kashakro Point, which is a headland coming out from the sea there. And then, of course, you have Tusa Beach down there where people go to bathe and so forth. As you can see, the whole area has a certain quality where it's not just the geography has shaped the history, shaped the culture. Across our 31 designated fish landing sites, we at the Fisheries Division observed that fishing involves a cross-generational transfer of knowledge, right? And somebody mentioned that, I believe, earlier, such as boating skills, we have fishing gear use, we have weather prediction, understanding waves and currents, navigating in the open sea, marking locations at sea using features on the land. As references, I already see a fisherman say, all right, he put in his fish pot there, and it have a cow over there, and it have a branch over there, and if you come directly where they matching like that, he can know where his fish pot is. And then later on, myself and Mr. Defoe, the current minister in Ministry of Agriculture, had to go and scuba dive and find the fish pot for him because he lost it. But I digress. He was maybe a bad navigator. I think he was. Also, our fishermen, they know very well the fish behavior. So much so that I remember one of the first things I learned when I come to fisheries 20 plus years ago. I mean, was the officers that were there before my time would say, oh, the fisherman would say, the fish Vinny, Sava, I don't know what the Creole means, but it means like they become smart, right? Smart, yes. So they couldn't find the fish anymore, the fish become smart. So I say, what school the fish go to? Why they become smart? But anyway. Right? And lastly, of course, you have to understand and know survival at sea. You can't go to sea and expect to just survive. It's something that has to be built in and it's something that you have to learn and understand. Right? And of course, fishing has become the cornerstone of the community activity life beyond just economics, of course. It includes cooperation, cooperative labor, such as Kudme, like, for example, fellas pulling up the net together there. That's a cooperative exercise. Mending nets together, helping each other mend their boats, pull up their boats from the sea at the end of the day. The sort of things like that are built into the culture, right? Of course, I mentioned knowledge sharing already, mutual support systems, service sector roles, so we'll talk about that later, a little bit what that entails. And so what are these then, if not indicators and characteristics of culture and heritage within that given group? These are the hallmarks of the culture of that group, right? So fishing is the intentional practice of catching fish. You have to have an intent to catch fish. And some people might wonder why that is the case, but international law, for example, says that if a vessel is traveling through Dominica's waters and it have a hook on the sea, or even a hook on the deck, right, then that boat can be considered to be fishing, right? And you can charge that boat, right? So it has to be intent. The intent has to be there. So that is seen as intent, right? So that's why I mentioned that. So fishing is also considered worldwide as one of the most dangerous jobs. It can be dirty, dangerous, and deadly. You can die and we've had a few deaths just recently, That small boat, right? This is owing to the hazards inherent in working on a small vessel in the open sea. So that small boat with its meager crew is sometimes several miles offshore, constantly looking out for bad weather, keeping an eye on your fuel consumption, right? And keeping their body free from sunburn. You have that hazard. You have hypothermia if you get wet, right? Or even cuts from your hooks, knives, and so on. All while trying your best to find, catch, and haul up that fish, right? Hoping that all of that exercise and effort was worth the effort. You can make back your gas money. Gas not cheap. Right? Perhaps knowing this, fishers are keen to share as much knowledge as they can among each other, right? After all, if your engine is unexpectedly shuts down at sea, there is no branch you can tie to so that you don't drift away. You will end up in Venezuela, right? These things do happen. I mean, I was watching a documentary the other day, and they talk about a guy who spent almost 6 months at sea drifting, and this kind of things happen. The sea can be very scary. It can also be very giving, I mean, for example, the Feast of St. Peter, the patron saint of the fishers across the world, celebrates the fisher and is often thankless effort. Blessing him, yes, typically a him, but not always, with ever-increasing catch, while petitioning for a safe return to shore. So these are some of the hallmarks of the culture of our fisher population. Now, the fishing sector itself is small scale, artisanal, right? Retaining a lot of tradition within the activities. The boats are small, usually under 25 feet. They open no decks. They offer no shade, usually, right? Powered by at least one outboard engine, usually between 30 and 85 horsepower, and carrying a 2-man crew, right? And they traverse up to a reported 80 miles offshore. but that is, I do confirm that one already. That's what the fisherman tell me go into, right? But usually they keep within 14 miles from the coast. These boats operate they operate day trips, about 6 hours per day. They go out at the same time, come back about 6 to 8 hours, typically, based on how the fish is biting, right? And they catch a multiple of fish. So they have like the balau you're seeing up there, the ballyhoo. They have dolphin fish. So the coastal pelagics are like the balau, the jacks, the makio, the sort of things like that. And then you have the large pelagics, which are offshore and migratory. They travel long distances from across the Atlantic Ocean. Things like the dolphin fish, the tuna, the marlin, the vowie, the sort of things like that, right? So that's some of the species there to catch. So we have a wide variety of species. That's why we call our fishery a multi-species fishery, as opposed to places, for example, in the Pacific North or the Atlantic North, where they catch cod or halibut. Or that's all they do. Or if you heard about the king crab, if you ever watch the biggest deadliest catch or whatever, king crab is just that they do. Right? So we don't have that sort of thing in Dominica because of our type of fishery and the type of geographic that we have in Dominica. We have a large diversity of species. All right. Of course, also there's the redfish, or what you call the demersals, so snappers, groupers, and so forth. That's the proper names for it. Right? All right. Fishing is largely unmechanized as well. So that fish what you see on the beach there in Scott said, you have to set that yourself by hand, pull that up by hand, thousands of feet sometimes you have to pull by hand. So our fishermen can be very, robust and solid and so on. So, and they eat, or I guess maybe toloma as well, possibly, right? Right, Miranda? And our main gear right now that we use hook and line. That's the most common gear. You can use it to catch any of the fish I mentioned so far. But of course, you can use fish pots if you want to specialize just for demersals. You can use your nets if you want to specialize for coastal pelagics, which are schooling fish, right? And so on and so forth. Okay, so let me move on to something else. Now, in terms of sector roles, right, so there are primary roles and there are secondary roles. The primary roles are people that actually catch the fish. They are the fishers. So you have the captains and the crew. These are the people that go out to sea. They take the most danger. Then you have the investors or the boat owners, right? They sometimes own the boat, they own the gear, they own the engine, right? And they have a crew, right? But sometimes you have fishers who are also boat owners, right? Okay. And then you have vendors. When the fish comes back to shore, then somebody goes out and sells the fish. Sometimes the fisher does all of those things. Okay, so just imagine you spend a whole day at sea, beating water, beating sun, beating everything, beating fish, right? And then you have to come back and you still have to figure out, put your boat on shore, organize your engine, and still go and sell fish and blow conch shell for you. And then you say, what? $10 a pound you selling that? And you vex. And you vex. Right? And then, of course, you have the supporting roles. So these are the people that support the fishing sector. I'll try to run fast. So we have the gear builders, repairers. You have the boat builders, repairers, outboard engine mechanics, equipment suppliers, and more recently, fish processors. So as you can see, the fishing sector is a very broad sector. Right? There are a lot of people involved, and I mean, it is something very, very unique. There are some basic stats on our fisher folk. I will not go through all of them. Typically, our fishermen have some level of education, primary school education primarily. Most of them are not married, they're single. I guess they prefer that. Only 3.8% female, and so forth. What I can talk about again, in terms of roles, as I mentioned, people have multiple roles. And yeah, they fish about 3.6 days a week. But they'll still tell you that they fish every day. But that is statistics for you. I must talk about women in fisheries, of course. Primarily, we have vendors, right? They can be the money managers of the family fishing household, right? They are critical to the economic stability and social fabric of the communities. So they play a very, very critical and important role in that regard. In terms of fisheries management, I just want to say here, well, fisheries division manages fisheries, but the living marine resources of Dominica's exclusive economic zone or our seas. But fisheries management is not about managing the fish per se, it's about managing the people who catch the fish and interact with the fish. So that's how it works. So we have licensing systems, we have programs for training, and to build better practices within the entire sector. All right, so in terms of first Scott said, let's get back to that one because that's specifically important. I should have had a tours to talk there. But anyway, next time. I just wanted to get the context there because it's important to understand the sector. It's an often misunderstood sector, I believe. So there have been shifts in the Sufferers Quartet area over the past few decades. Activities have moved offshore from the Sufferer Bay out offshore, and that's because of habitat degradation that's happened over time, because of pollution, because of bad fishing practices. Also, there's been an encroachment of non-fishing activities in the near shore. So you have people coming in tourism and other things coming in there, and they bull not the fishermen essentially from the traditional livelihood opportunities. Those things have happened, right? And of course, there's another thing that happened, the adoption of FADs, fish aggregating devices. So these are devices we put in the sea that creates an area, a micro ecosystem where the fish that are migrating, like the tuna, the marlin, the dolphin, can stop, get a bite, and the fishermen can know they can go there and they can catch this fish, right? So that has helped enhance their livelihood opportunities as well. Of course, with that migration, you cannot go with a canoe anymore. You have to go with a better boat, a stabler boat. So you have fiberglass vessels becoming more and more popular, the bigger, right? And also you need bigger engines, more engines, and so on. And then you move from a net-based to a line-based fishing culture in that regard, because you can't use nets on the tunas before small boats, right? Of course, there's a correlation between the bigger boats and more catches, as I mentioned last night, if you heard me on the program last night. I'll not get into that now. Now, the fisher folk, they are supported by the St. Mark's Fisheries and Tourism Cooperative, who offers services in regards to ice, fuel, and some retail shops. They manage the seaside bars and also the locker room so you can store your gear and get on with your fishing business. So a lot of community going in there. And most of those people that are there, they're not fishers themselves, but they support. Then, of course, I will talk about the Suppressed Cotton Marine Reserve, which has a dual purpose in managing the living resources of the area for extractive and non-extractive use. Extractive as in fishing, non-extractive as in tourism, okay? And it's a model of integrated marine management that fosters sustainable livelihoods, because you must have the fisher folk there together with the tourism people to make that sort of situation work. Of course, then established under the SSMR and so forth and so on. It's an area of 4.9 kilometers squared, and it has wardens who enforce the laws of that area, right? They also collect visitor fees, and that's basically how they finance themselves. We're looking at different sustainable models for financing them as we proceed. There are 4 zones for scuba, for nursery, recreation, and fishing, which is the priority. And that SSMR area is managed by the local area management authority, which the Fisheries Division has a holding in. That's some pictures of the SSMR. Right, looking ahead, so plans for the future. We have developed management plans for the area. That includes integrated management plans. We've done some onshore infrastructure already, so you see some jetties there. We're working towards developing a slipway and also a processing center, as Scott said. We're looking at livelihood diversification, including introduction of CMOS. So we have other opportunities you can do there. Capacity building for staff. So we did enforcement training. We did boat master training just this week for our staff, so they can go out there and do some patrols, right? Improve data. We use tablets right now for data collection, so we have real-time data collection coming in. Of course, coral conservation. If you look at our Coral Rescue Center, that picture at the top there, we have a picture of some of the work we're doing in terms of saving the corals from ocean acidification, from stony coral tissue loss disease, which just wiped out all our population, and other factors like that, right? So I will just conclude there. So the importance of all of this is that we didn't do all of that work alone, and it just behooves us that we are doing all this effort because of our partners, but also because we're looking at the goal here, which is sustainable resource management in service to the associated livelihoods of that area, right? It includes and involves community buy-in, participation, and leadership. And we want people to think of being moved from just resource users to resource co-managers. So you have to be part and parcel of it. So if you live in anywhere near the coast, and even if you're not, right, try to see if you can get involved and get in these things. And of course, there are complementarities across the user groups. So you have fishing being central to food security, and tourism that fosters a bit of economic diversity and growth. And of course, you can combine the tradition with the science, with the practical investment, and know that this is not a monument, it's a movement, it will change. We have learned already that these things will happen. All right, so call to action, so support your community co-management programs, invest in landing and storage infrastructure, champion integrated management approaches, partner with your local communities, and keep on learning more about fisheries. And that I will leave that with you with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this insightful presentation, Mr. Theophile. At this point in time, we call on Mrs. Gwyneth Frederick, and she will be speaking on the topic, Kalinago Crafts, Weaving Traditional Practices and Modern Business Innovations. Let's make her welcome.
Your Excellency, Mrs. Josette Matthew, Acting President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Monsignor Eustace Thomas, priest, Our Lady of Fairhaven Parish, Dr. Kimon Joseph, head of the UWI Global Campus and staff of the UWI Global Campus, Mr. Ilson Matthew, Chief Cultural Officer, Division of Culture, and staff of the Division of Culture, Mr. Michael Walter, Coordinator, Private Sector Relations, Industry, Commerce, and Innovation in the Ministry of Labor, Public Service Reform, Social Partnership, Entrepreneurship, and Small Business Development. Our panelists, Ms. Miranda Stevenson and Mr. Derek Theophil, former Chief Lorenzo Sanford, who's here with us this evening, audience, members in the auditorium joining us, and those joining us via emo, and Kyrie FM, Kalinago people listening online as well, Mabrika. It is a privilege to join this esteemed panel as we reflect on traditional community livelihoods, a theme that speaks directly to the heartbeat of my people, the art and craft and heritage that has long defined our way of life. This evening, I wish to draw your attention, though, to one of the most enduring symbols of Kalinago heritage, the Laumon reed. For generations, this humble plant has sustained families, preserved culture, and served as a foundation of one of our most important traditional crafts, the art of weaving. For us, Kalinagos, they are not just simple economic activities. They are cultural expressions, vessels of memory, and symbols of resilience. Each basket, each canoe, each carving tells a story. For example, the harvesting, the dyeing, the stripping, and ultimately the weaving of a Laumon reed, the crafting or the etching of a calabash, the shape of wood into functional and spiritual objects. These all connect us to the knowledge of our ancestors on whose shoulders we stand. So when you see, for example, Cecilia's creations under the government headquarters on a Friday, do not try to negotiate with her. When she tells you her basket is $145, is the work that goes into this basket. You would have heard from one of our panelists, Mrs. Stevenson, speak about kudme. Making a basket is not something that you can do via kudme, because everybody has their own technique of weaving. Everybody has their own technique of etching on the calabash. Everybody has their own technique of etching on the fougere or the fern, as you might know it, but we call it fougere. So it's not something that you can do together. So please don't try to negotiate. Okay, so the inspiration for these etchings come from our island's breathtaking landscapes, dense forests, rainforests, our cascading waterfalls, and our crystal clear rivers. They infuse these natural elements into our work, capturing the essence of Dominica in every stitch, every stroke, and every carving. The Kalinago people have, over the years and over time, over centuries, harvested material from nature with care. We only take what is needed, leaving the land with minimal impact on the ecosystem, ensuring that our plants regenerate and respecting the cycles of the land. For example, the moon phase is very important to us, the Kalinago people. We rely on the moon phases for when we plant, when we harvest, when we trim, when we weed, so that we get maximum yield from whatever crops that we leave. So, for example, we're not going to harvest the palmis in the wrong moon, and then you don't grow tall, you just stay. You have to follow the moon. So it's either 3 days before full moon, 3 days after full moon, first quarter, new moon. All these things are important to us. And we live in it so much that I'm sure Mrs. Stevenson also will agree with me that our parents would have used those moon phases in cutting our hair. If you want your hair to be full, or if you want it to be straight, or if you want it to fall, you want it to thin. These things happen, and I can attest to that. So in today's world, where mass production and overconsumption dominate, these practices stand as lessons in balance and stewardship from the Kalinago people. So every piece of Kalinago craft, carries a piece of our island's history, whispering tales of resilience, harmony, and a profound respect for nature. But just beyond as a means of survival for us in the Kalinago territory, our arts and crafts they're essential to our identity. They give us pride. We take pride in our craft. They tell our children who we are. They link us to a wider Caribbean and indigenous story of resilience. So each weave, each pattern, each technique are markers of heritage and survival, and they tell our story. We are living proof that despite of centuries of colonization and marginalization, the Kalinago spirit remains unbroken. However, with every culture and with we face challenges like everybody else in keeping our culture alive, in ensuring that we get our youth to understand the need for culture, to keep our culture alive. So sometimes we find that our younger generation might see the act of craft making as less valuable than being a lawyer, a doctor, and these types of professions. And it is through help from organizations like the one that Mrs. Langley heads, and the Ihara Foundation, and help from UNDP. We have programs in the Kalinago territory where we teach the young people to weave, we teach them to dance at an early age, so we can instill in them this pride of learning the Kalinago culture. We also face the competition with local markets, with local creation, mass production of generic and sometimes, expertly copied souvenirs, items that are a lot cheaper than the authentic items, and thereby undermining our sales. I can speak directly to this because I walked into a certain store, I'm not going to call names, and I saw a hat, right? It looked exactly like a chapeau pie. And for a moment, I was like, oh, wow, we're doing some, buy-in for resale or some collaboration, until I felt the material. And it was completely synthetic. But if I'm telling you from a distance, it is a Kalinago hat I saw. So we are faced with these challenges, and also we are also faced with the compromising of our authenticity for faster sale. Our cruise ship season starts tomorrow, and sometimes you find that visitors will say that the craft items are a little bulky to carry, so you will bypass a certain weave on a basket, to make it smaller. But in so doing, you are losing the cultural value and the meaning of the craft item. So we are also faced with this. And we are also faced with climate change. They're threatening natural resources like the reeds and the palms and the mibi and the calabashes. They are becoming a lot more difficult to access. After Hurricane Maria, a lot of our lauma was gone. So the vendors suffered for about a year. It was very difficult to find raw materials for that. So I'm saying this to say that it comes back to the whole negotiation or non-negotiation, because you have to pay people to go into the forest right now to get the lauma for you. So they will come with a bundle, they will come with 2 bundles, and sometimes half of them are not good. So, but you still have to pay the gentleman or the young lady for her work, So, hence my point and my plea for non-negotiation of our craft items. But this is where the re-imaging becomes important. So, Kalinago craft and heritage must be positioned not only as cultural treasures, but as engines of sustainable development. It means supporting additions with training in entrepreneurship, branding, and digital marketing. It means fair access to tourism markets where authenticity is valued and not exploited. And it means engaging cultural education in our schools so our youth can see that craft as not an old-fashioned, but as a living skill, a source of pride, and a pathway to economic independence. E.O. Leblanc himself believed in self-reliance and in lifting up the knowledge of ordinary people. So in honoring his legacy, let us commit to valuing our Kalinago craft as both heritage and livelihood. Heritage that must be preserved, and livelihood that can sustain families, communities, and our entire nation. So when a Kalinago weaves a basket or carves a canoe, is not just being a product made, it's an identity being reaffirmed, resilience being practiced, and heritage being passed on. It is the power of our traditional community livelihoods, and it is a power that we just cannot afford to lose right now. So, as I said earlier, every strip, every pattern created, carries the knowledge of our ancestors. Through Lauma, Kalinagos have sustained our livelihoods, our community pride, and passed on values of patience, discipline, and respect for nature. But we also see the opportunities that we can have with our Lauma read. For example, as I was saying, with support, our Lauma can flourish as both heritage and enterprise. With proper access to markets, protecting our reed's natural habitat, and teaching the younger skills to generations, we ensure that the Lauma remains more than a symbol. It remains a living livelihood. And I would like to highlight some of the agencies that have been working with us to do that. We have the Ministry of Environment and Kalinago Upliftment, the UNDP, DEXIA. DEXIA has been working with the Kalinago people to determine authenticity markers, because to deal with some of the problems that we are facing of, copying of our craft. There's the CARIPI project that we've been working on DEXIA with, to identify identity markers, even intellectual property rights for our craft. But to do this, we need to form ourselves as associations in a Kalinago Craft Association. And sometimes even this can be proved to be difficult, but we are working tirelessly to ensure that, this is done. We have the Division of Culture, who also works with us within Kalinago territory to ensure that our craft items remain authentic. But looking forward, though, we have business innovation ideas for Kalinago craft, digital marketing, an online presence, for example, Facebook, Instagram. You can do live videos. So you find that most of the craft vendors that we have these days, they're a little older. So if we can get the youth involved, TikTok is the in thing now. So under one of the projects, we went ahead and we did Facebook pages and email addresses and email for all of the vendors. We got them to register their businesses so they can now access loans at the aid bank under the Kalinago Fund. We have a few have done that, who have bought, have stocked up their businesses, who can now buy the Lauma, and we have those. And so as I was saying, you could do the videos. You get the younger people involved. They do the TikTok, maybe a live production for you. You have WhatsApp business catalogs. You partners with marketplaces, Caribbean online platforms, Amazon Handmade, Etsy. And I'm also proud to say that we have, one of my vendors at the KBA have an ongoing relationship with Fort Young, Intercontinental, Secret Bay. Yes. So every time they need their lampshades and their laundry baskets and their gift items, these come straight from the Kalinago territory. So there are different ways that you can add value, and we're looking at adding value to the craft items that we have. For example, you will realize that, like I have this bag on the desk. It is in different shades of Lauma, right? We have brown, different shades of brown. But through training and innovation, you will realize now that you can get baskets that have all different colors. You can get Lauma reed dyed in purple. You can get it dyed in red, and it is as a means to attract the younger generation. And then we have some of our vendors who actually add leather to our baskets. So you add a flair of extra value to it. Then you have realized that we also have some of the baskets that have madras. You line them with madras. So during the Creole season, we have my vendors at the KBA, they were going crazy. Last year, for example, Cecilia's Creations, she did 135 chapo pie. And it's because she didn't have more to sell. Yes. So the art of craft making is sustaining families in the Kalinago territory, is sending children to school. It is sustaining, it is definitely sustaining our families. And some of the other ways I'm thinking that we could add value to the Kalinago craft. Because the moon phases are very important to us, as I said, we could also have craft subscription boxes, tied to these moon phases. For example, you have heritage themes to go with them. We have Kalinago Week, where you have the ritual baths happening. So you have, thank you, you have your necklaces, your Kalinago necklaces, yes, you have them, and then you have your name etched into them. So everybody who takes a ritual bath, or everybody who gets a Kalinago name, you get, that is your birth certificate then. You have your name etched into it. So these are all ways that we believe we can add value to the Kalinago craft as we go forward into ensuring that it remains sustainable for us. So as I have said before, the Kalinagos will harvest our llama with respect, no pollution, no factory, lessons in sustainable living, the challenges that we go through with llama, the climate change, it affects the wetlands, the loss of traditional knowledge, the competition from the factory and from the imports, our opportunities to strengthen markets, protect habitats, train the younger generation, invest in our future. You empower our artisans, where you make it possible for them, to access small business loans. In so doing, we preserve our identity, we build economies rooted in tradition, and we share our Kalinago story with the world. And in closing, each of our baskets tells a story. Heritage is living, not just a memory. We're affirming our identity and practicing resilience. Thank you.
You are listening to live
Thank
coverage
you.
of the UWI Global Campus and the Division of Culture presentation of the 12th annual EO Leblanc panel discussion here at the University of the West Indies. And we want to thank you for taking the time to watch and to listen. We also want to thank the sponsors and the hosts and the producers of the next level following this broadcast to go through until 9 o'clock. Should it go beyond 9, we'll continue on 91.1 FM. It's time for question and answer.
Questions?
Hold on, Father.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Kevin Laurent. I am so elated to be here tonight. I'm so happy that I did not pass the opportunity to come here tonight. Invitation from a friend of mine, and I'm here. I want to thank Mr. Theophile for just enlightening me about the fishing industry. Mrs. Frederick, so much for the weaving culture in Dominica. I had an acute sense of nostalgia for my days in growing up in Grand Bay, when my grandfather and fathers owned a platine that makes farin, manioc, and 2 distilleries making bay oil. So when Mrs. Stevenson was talking about the Toloma, it really resonated with me. And I have such an appreciation for the hard work that we Dominicans invest. And it just brought me to a humble spirit all of a sudden in my seat right here, thinking of the hard work that it got me emotional, that it took from our parents to get us to the level of education that we have attained. So, but thank you. I just had a question for you, Mrs. Stevenson. You started talking about the trend of production, and you showed this slide on 2014. Then you mentioned hurricane. Where are we now?
Thank you. Hearing me? Okay, better. Um, we are almost back to the level pre-Maria in terms of sales and production. But COVID, one Maria destroyed a lot of the farms as well as their facilities for processing. But of course, again, roots for resilience. Farmers bounce back with time. Within a year, the Toloma crop takes 8 months from planting to harvest and to extract this. Everything stopped. And then the farmers will get into the point where they're like, I'm not making money out of that no more. I don't want to do that no more. And then luckily for us, praise the Lord, the Matnik people like our Toloma, they like the quality and the naturalness of it. So some French exporter came in and just absorbed everything in bulk. So now the farmers are back, getting back to normalcy. It's not exactly there yet, but it's almost there. And as you saw from the video from Miss Shirley George and other members of the Toloma Women in Action, what they are saying is it's everything to them, and they will continue doing it because they were there when it was $3 and they can still be there when it's $11. But of course, it's a personal choice. As much as we try to promote it, it's still a personal choice if the farmers want to continue or not.
Thank you very much for that. Father Thomas.
Thank you very much. Ms. Stevenson, I didn't hear about exports to the UK.
The UK, from the statistic received from the CSO office, where they register all exports of natural commodities in Dominica, UK wasn't a popular destination for the arrowroot. If it do get through UK, it has to go for France, because as you see, 80% of all of that goes from Martinique. And then if it reached UK, it's through France, or maybe people from our local people here who appreciate it and they are moving back. I don't think that those are not recorded in export trade, like returnees and those people who travel back after Creole Festival to UK, after Carnival and so on. It's a market, but it's not documented as export in our statistical figures. So those markets, those export values are not exactly recorded. But we know we have a lot of people from the UK because we were once under their colonization. So there are a lot of us and our families we send back and forth. So that's how they get to UK. But other than that, I haven't seen any document from CSO that would indicate it's a big market for Toloma.
Question over there.
Good evening. My question is for Mr. Theophile. Has the Fisheries Division considered the integration of modern technologies coupled with traditional fishing practices to sustain the livelihoods of the fisher folks?
Try to instill or introduce modern technologies coupled with our traditional practices, right, to improve livelihoods. That's what the question is, right? Yes. Yeah, we have done that. You can consider that the fish aggregating devices that I mentioned in my talk is one example of that. That is because we know that fishermen back in the day, you would search for fish, in the sea before the fires, and they would see like some branch of a tree or something floating in the sea, and they would know that the fish would be underneath there for shade. And then, of course, small fish there for shade, and the big fish will come and eat the small fish, and then they can go and catch this bigger fish. Right? So we just find a way to just tie that into the middle of the ocean and to use that as a sort of pit stop for the fish, you know, so that they can come there and we can catch them. So that's one way in which modern technology has been used. That was brought here by the FAO back in the 80s. Didn't really get adopted then. But then again in the 90s, our collaboration with the French, which we are very close to, and our fishermen, working with them and seeing the success that they've been having, we decided to pick it up ourselves and then just run with it pretty much. So that's pretty much where we are with regards to that. There are other things in terms of outboard engines. For example, we've traditionally used 4-stroke outboard engines. That's the older type of engines. And they work kind of like a bike, I guess, where the oil and the thing have to be mixed together, and then you pour it into the bidon and so forth, or pour it in the bidon and mix it and so forth. But right now you have the 4-stroke. No, you had 2-stroke before, now you have the 4-stroke. So the 4-stroke now like a car, right? You have the different compartments for the oil and the gas and other things like that, and you do your sort of thing. And it's more economical as well, you know. It's a newer technology, it's more economical, and it gives you a bit more power and so on. So you have that sort of technology. We are working on other technologies as well, such as winches and so forth, to help with the manual work that is involved in terms of setting net and setting ports and so on in some of these deeper waters. We also have introductions of things like GPSs. That's where you use that to navigate, so you don't have to get lost. We have a lot of integration of apps that help with regards to early warning. So there was a fewer app, fisheries early warning and emergency response app that we introduced our fishers to some years back. It didn't really catch on. It was in collaboration with the University of the West Indies some time back, but we're trying to reintroduce some of those things. Of course, we also got fishers GPS, well, we talk about GPS, VHF radios and so forth, so they can communicate, because you know when you get out there, it's difficult to communicate. You lose digital, you lose flow, everything loses when you reach a certain distance. But line of sight in the ocean is pretty much a good thing. If there's a vessel somewhere nearby, even line of sight, as we know, the curvature of the earth prevents continuous line of sight. But if you anywhere in line of sight of a vessel on channel 16, you can actually call for help using a VHF radio. So these are all technology options that we have introduced to the fisher folk and try to bring them back in. And we will continue to do so through our various programs and projects at the government. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
Okay, any of the panelists can answer. We know that to sustain our traditional livelihoods, youth participation is critical. What are the strategies that are being employed for the sustained interest and participation of our youth? If not, eventually it comes to an end.
With our Kalinago craft, the art of boat making, the art of weaving, the art of etching on the ferns, these are things that we take seriously, and we have been working with the students in the school, for example, even the art of dancing. The Kalinago Council have instituted a program in the school where one of the counselors teaches children the dances. And then recently, UNDP funded a program in the Kalinago territory at the Carino village, where you had at least between 12 and 20 young persons who learned to make baskets. And then we also, at the KBA, I run a summer program for the schools, 2 weeks, where they learn to weave, they learn to dance, and they learn the art of traditional cooking. So in this way, we ensure that, the young ones learn what they need to learn, and we try to instill in them the pride and the art of learning the different aspects of our culture.
And at this time, we want to say special thanks to all of you for having listened and having watched. But we ask that you stay tuned to Carry FM as we get ready for the next level on 107.9, 93.1, 90, that's 93.1 and 88.7. We continue tonight's lecture on 91.1 and also on TV. So anytime from now, we will be making the transition. Stay with us.
Efficiency in production. These are of some of the approaches. We have also tried to actually engage some of the youth or the children of the family of those who are in the processing to not just be part of the processing, but to in help in their families or the seniors in a business to do a more business approach to kind of transform the whole outlook and the whole value chain. But it's a lot of work still. It's still in its primary formation. We had done some work with ICA in terms of trying to get a needs assessment in terms of what is available within the community and areas that the youth can participate in and how they can help transform the whole processing, because you still want to maintain the element of culture and tradition, but you have to meet market demands. Younger generations are more sophisticated than the generation before. They expect certain things. They expect certain quality, certain packaging, and you want to keep that market as well. You want it to have a long life within the market space. So we had identified areas where the youth can participate, but it's a work in progress. It's not where we would like it to be as a ministry, and it would be nice if the youth could get on board in, like I indicated, innovation, finding alternative use to increase the market segment for the Toloma product, as well as helping, because business before is not the same as business now. Everything has to be you have to integrate that to create a wider market space and to be part of the whole global economic. So we had identified the youth coming into those areas and helping to manage the processing and marketing and some of the elements that they have more knowledge of. But like I said, it's still work in progress.
Okay.
We will take one last question.
I am Dr. Rosetta Bess, and I'm very impressed by all the hard work that is being done, and just took me back to, like Dr. Laura said, in terms of the Jajune when we were growing up, right? Older folks may remember that. My question has to do with what is being produced. It is very impressive to see how much is being sold in the region, especially with the Toloma. I'm curious as to, are you tracking local consumption with the view to reducing the food import bill? How can what is being produced help that, and what can be done to encourage local consumption so we can see those impressive numbers when we look at the exports in the region and the world, but also what is being consumed here? How do we strike that balance to encourage that?
All right. Thank you for the question. Well, that as well, it's a regional commitment at the moment, especially with the CARICOM 25 by 2030, so +5 or something like that, I think it reads. Basically, we are trying to reduce our import by 25% by the year 2030. And one of our biggest import is wheat and wheat products, and products with our local products that are of starch material is where we are looking at to move it towards reducing those importation. We haven't been tracking our local consumption as needs, and we realize there's this gap in our knowledge, capturing our information and our knowledge to make proper assessment and to do proper analysis of how our local consumption or how our people are consuming our local foods. And it's not just for Toloma alone, it's for all our local production. We haven't been able to capture that in a way that it can be useful to us. But yes, we have identified that as a limitation, and we are trying to work on that component as well. We have been engaged with CSO on how we're going to try and capture that piece of gap in information. I think we may even want to consider introducing surveys, especially during the peak period where we have a lot of migration and immigration, and a lot of our people come back and go and they bring back all of the traditional foods. Maybe some random survey at the airports at those times so we can capture what he was asking us for in a way that will not make people feel they are breaking the law by any means. You know, when you start asking questions, people get uncomfortable because they don't know what you're using it for. Hopefully we will do it in a manner that everybody will be comfortable in giving the information, so we can say in 2026, 50 persons left for England, each with 1 pound of toloma. So we can kind of get an idea as to how much, without a structured market, how much those persons bring back and how much they contribute to our local economy. And if each person drink a kakoti fikan with toloma for the season, twice a week, especially during the climax of Creole Week, you will be helping us to get that market and develop continuity through the family, because you have to introduce the new generation to what is, for them to create, for them to have a taste for it, for them to have an appetite for it. And you never know how far it will reach. My husband calls it Wapa.
Thank you to our very knowledgeable panelists, you, the audience, for your thoughtful questions. This evening's discussion reminds us that our heritage and tradition are not relics of the past, but living foundations of our sustainable future. This concludes our panel segment. I want to thank UWI, Global Campus, and the Division of Culture for the opportunity to moderate this lecture. And now I humbly hand over the proceedings back to the chair. Thank you.
Everybody, bad bravo for Micah Walter. You did an excellent job as moderator, Micah. And now I call on Mrs. Amanda Theodore Langley, who is the chair of the UWI Global Campus Dominica Guild of Students, to give the official vote of thanks. Amanda?
Well, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good evening to all. On behalf of the UWI Global Campus Dominica, I extend sincere appreciation to all who contributed to the success of the 12th annual E.O. Leblanc Memorial Lecture. We are deeply indebted to our esteemed panelists, Mrs. Miranda Stevenson, Mr. Derek Theophil, and Mrs. Gwyneth Frederick, for their insightful presentations on traditional community livelihoods. Our gratitude also extends to our moderator, Mr. Michael Walter, for his skillful guidance of the discussion. Special thanks to Dr. Kimon Joseph, head of the UWI Global Campus Dominica, and Mr. Erson Matthew, Chief Cultural Officer, for their leadership and collaboration. Special thanks to Mr. Monsignor Eustache Thomas for the invocation, Mrs. Tasha Pelte for the national anthem, and to Her Excellency, Mrs. Matthew, Acting President of the Commonwealth of Dominica. You are honoring us with your presence. We are truly grateful. And to our guests and audience, thank you for sharing this evening of reflection and inspiration. Have a pleasant evening and safe travels back home. But before we leave, we want to remind all those with the lovely headpieces to please return them. And we all... And also, we do have refreshments for you, so do enjoy.
Thank you very much, Amanda. If you all think you're going home with Amanda's headpieces, you have another thing coming. Okay. So I invite everyone to head down to the large classroom, the Francis Severin classroom where we'll have some refreshments and we'll also take some photos at that time in that space. Thank you very much, everyone.
From Dr. Kimon Joseph, head of UWI Open Campus here in Dominica, bringing the final words to this broadcast. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for listening. Thank you as well to the Next Level team for allowing the program, the broadcast, to go through. But we just learned that there is still no late edition of the Next Level due to Parliament. It was just told that just 25 seconds ago. So we want to ask that you stay tuned to the genuine sound of Dominica Cairo FM. Good night, everyone, on behalf of my technician, Mosiah Olive, and also assisted by Gustav Trigo. Don't forget to join us tomorrow. We'll be live at Lindomat tomorrow for another live broadcast. And then on Thursday, of course, we'll bring you more broadcasts as usual all through until the weekend. Heritage Day will be broadcast live. Market Day with a difference in Portsmouth will be broadcast live, as well as the ordination of the men of God on Saturday. Good night, everyone. Take care now. I'm out.